hate you, I hate you, I don't even know you, and I hate your guts. And I hope all the bad things in life happen to you and only you. On initial announcement, the Mark 8 Golf R and GTI were met with some pretty strong criticism. Some of that, well warranted. Others, well, not so much. I've had this Mark 8 Golf R for about 2.5 years, and I think this is the perfect time to reassess some of those criticisms. For full transparency, this is my car that I bought back in February of 2022, and it's got about 20,000 miles on it now. So all of this is my opinion. Our first look at the car came from a premiere and press releases, and that was really when we got to see the entire package unveiled. This is also where we got our first complaints of the car looks like an SUV, why is it so tall, we're not feeling the new VW logo, and the R logo looks like a Volvo logo. I will tell you, I was one of those people that was not into the new VW logo or the new R logo. Now, SUV, maybe, but I understand why that sentiment came, especially from the back corner of the car. It has a very consistent Volkswagen SUV feel to it, just a little bit lower, I guess. And as far as the new R logo, it may have taken a while, but eventually it grew on me. Next, the car hit the press circuit, and this is where it got crucified. Some of the opinions of the reviewers were actually pretty justified. Others, maybe a little blown out of proportion. While there were big opinions about the whole entire car, the majority of the heartburn existed in the cockpit because Volkswagen killed all the buttons in the whole entire car, made everything touchscreen and haptic feedback, including things on the steering wheel. And to make all of that even worse, the early versions of the software in these cars was actually kind of awful, really glitchy, and super slow. What made it worse, there was a long time between those reviews coming out and the cars actually getting on the road, which brings us to our next major problems, a bunch of delays. The car was supposed to come out in Q3 of 22 in North America region. It didn't come out till October for GTI, and actually February of 22 for Golf R. In fact, this car right here that I'm sitting in got to port in like September, and I couldn't pick it up till February because they were trying to make sure there was enough stock for every dealership to get at least one. Once they hit the dealerships, the whole thing came crashing down. This was a post-COVID hangover era and a horrible time to actually buy a car. The interest rates were good, but the prices were through the roof. So not only were there almost none that you could actually buy, but dealerships were charging $2,500 market adjustment rate all the way up to like $20,000. And while I love this car, and I think at 45 grand, 44 grand, it's a pretty good deal. In no world would I say this is a $60,000 car. Now, I was pretty lucky that I was able to get one and not have to pay those markups, but I actually had to drive 3 states away in order to do it. I couldn't even get one at the local dealership without paying a market adjustment rate. So imagine a car that reviewers crapped on from top to bottom, months and months and months of delays. Now it's launched, it's hit the dealers. If you can even find one, dealerships were charging just a dumb amount of money for market adjustment. There were a lot of dealers that really showed their true colors when this car and the GTI both launched. And despite what a lot of us really want to believe, the dealerships have a lot of power in this world. So manufacturers really couldn't do anything about it. That, I think, created the ultimate dagger for the Mark 8 really getting a lot of its hate. Now, when people finally got the car in their hand, they also had some concerns as well. Some of that was echoing what the reviewers were saying. Some were additional. One of the big concerns was the car not having a hood strut, but having a prop rod. But as you can see, there's an aftermarket solution. Another early problem was a recall on the engine cover. Now, I hated the engine cover that came in this car. I thought it was awful anyway. They were actually catching on fire. Not a big deal. However, Volkswagen never had a solution for it. We're 2.5 years later, and I still don't have an engine cover to replace it. But I hated it and thought it was ugly and cheap feeling anyway, so getting rid of it wasn't that big of a deal to me. Now, there were also cases of failures probably on every part of the car. This is very common on a launch. I started right before the Mark 5 launch, and I remember very vividly, we replaced 4 or 5 engines and a bunch of transmissions in the first few months the car came out. But there was one failure that seemed to plague both Golf R and GTI basically across the board, and that was steering wheel failure. As you were driving, you would get alerts in the dash for travel assist, and it would basically bing every 30 seconds or so. And to make this problem with the steering wheel worse, they ended up on back order. So you might have that problem for months before actually getting it fixed. There were also a handful of gripes with this infotainment system. It was slow and glitchy to boot up as well as just function. And the big problem with that is Climatronic. It takes a while for you to be able to access this screen, which means if you left it blaring on heat, it would take a little bit of time before you could shut that off. The other major problem people had with this was it was hard to find things, and stuff was buried in weird menus. For example, on the Mark 7, to turn off traction control, you just hit a button and it turns it off. This is how you initially have to do it on Mark 8. Go to Vehicle, slide over, go to Brakes, turn traction control off, just like that. 3 or 4 screens and a bunch of button presses. I have my traction control on this swipe down screen right here. Definitely more of a pain in the butt than just hitting a button. By the way, while we're here, another big problem that people had is this bottom part of the screen is not illuminated. So when it's dark, you can't see the Climatronic or the volume up here on the display. I never really use this because I think it's not the best way to interact with the system, but it was pretty stupid of an oversight that this isn't illuminated. Another problem spot was the hill hold feature on this car, which is absolutely terrible, and you can't even turn it off. This holds the car for about a 3 count after you let off the brake, and if you don't do it right, you either tack the car all the way up or you end up stalling it. There were also a ton of cases of the shift knob actually breaking, more of a GTI issue, but basically it was separating on this lower part. This is actually the 4th shift knob that I've had on my car, 1 on the recall, and then a bunch of them had other random problems. So I said 4 shift knobs, I actually counted wrong. It's been 5. The one that came in the car, the recalled one, I had a creaking one, I had one that rattled like something was broken inside of it, and then this one. 5 shift knobs. And funny enough, the first one that was in it, there was never a problem with it. Mine was fine. There were also a ton of more pain points, but these are some of the most common. Awful cup holders. The cup holders in the Mark 8 are terrible, and why don't we have a sunglasses holder? That's dumb, dumb. Behind this blue decal is an orange reflector that people absolutely hated, but this was just for US market. There's also a little amber light here that kind of looks terrible. Also, US didn't get the matrix headlight activated. And the goofy fender extensions that came from the factory, boo. You'll notice mine aren't there anymore. Now, any one of those things wouldn't have been that big of a deal. However, all of them piled together really left an early bad taste for a lot of people. With all those problems that we mentioned, and I'm sure I forgot a bunch more, how the heck did they sell so many of these things? Well, what I can tell you, after 2 years and over 20,000 miles, this car is actually awesome. When it comes to the styling, I really like the way this car looks, and I think I actually said that when the car first dropped. And I don't know what it is about this car, but it looks way better in person than it does in any picture or any video. It just never looks quite as good as it does while you're standing next to it. This car is also an absolute blast to drive. It has multiple personality disorders in really the best possible way I guess you could have that. You can get over 30 miles to the gallon while cruising on a road trip. You have all the technology in it, adaptive cruise control, which either you love it or you hate it. I'm on the side of actually liking all of that stuff. Then you're a couple of taps away from sliding around a corner, drifting the car, ripping it on the racetrack, or just some spirited mountain driving. This car also has a heads-up display, a heated steering wheel, the cool lights on the inside that you can change the color of, heated rear seats, which I don't care because I'm never gonna sit back there anyway, all packaged in the best possible platform for a car, a mini station wagon, also known as a hatchback, or a tiny SUV. And while it's never gonna be an R3, for most of us, that is the pinnacle of cool. What I will say is the Mark 8 outperforms the Mark 7.5 in every way possible, except 2. Okay, now I get it, the cup holder thing and the sunglass thing are kind of stupid complaints on my part, but those are things that you'll actually interact with the car pretty regularly. With that being said, we really do need to acknowledge that some of those early complaints in the car were absolutely legit. Some of them, like the lagginess in the infotainment, the slow boot time, the glitchiness, have been taken care of. Some of them, there's never going to be any healing, like those insane dealership markups. And I bet there's a bunch that I forgot to mention. Some of them were blown way out of proportion. Once you learned how all this stuff works in the infotainment, it's actually fine, and getting used to the no buttons ends up not being that big of a deal. Now, in my opinion, there's too much going on the steering wheel anyway. This is an RS3 steering wheel, and it's got a bunch of stuff going on too. It's probably one of the reasons why the haptic never really bothered me. And some of them, while it felt like a pretty big cheap out, were solved with the aftermarket, like this 034 hood strut and plenty of engine cover options available. However, I'm too cheap to buy an engine cover, so mine's naked. So we've been through a lot with the Mark 8. We've done all the different driving styles. This car was even at the 034 booth at SEMA 2 years ago. And with all of that, I think it's time to send this car to its new home. I've decided to sell the Mark 8. It's time to let someone else enjoy this car. I am going to do something else for a little while. What that is, I really don't know yet, but I can tell you it's not gonna be Mark IV Jetta like this one, even though this one does sound really, really great. I actually think I'm going to be holding out for a late run Mark 8.5 because I've heard some rumors that we might actually see some limited production number special run cars, possibly, maybe. I don't know exactly for sure what it is. Maybe we'll get another run of Spectrum cars with VR6 twin turbos. You never really know what kind of stuff Volkswagen is gonna come out with, but I will leave you with this. One, Volkswagen, you've become very boring in your color choice selection. We only got 3 choices for this car. And 2, more importantly, never buy the first year of a brand new car unless you're willing to put up with a whole bunch of baloney. So with that, I'm out. Have an awesome day, and I'll talk to you again next time. It's my bad Dave Chappelle impression. I hate you, 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 I don't even know you and I hate your guts. I hate you, I hate you, I hate you. I don't even know you and I hate your guts. I hope all the bad things in life happen to you and only you. I don't even know you and I hate your guts. And I hope all the bad things in life happen to you and only you.